Anna, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, I appreciate you taking the time. For people who aren't familiar with M13 Venture Fund, tell us a little bit more about what you all do at M13 and your role there as well, Anna.
Yeah, absolutely. I joined M13 in December of 2020 as a partner on the investing team. We're a consumer focused venture fund investing at Series A across the future of consumer behavior, the big buckets of consumer behavior. So, thinking about health and work and commerce and the future of money, with Web3 as a sort of strong through line into all of that.
With that as well, so knowing that that's the focus, I feel like M13 is such a great brand. And from seeing M13 for the last number of years and like all the stuff you guys do, it's like, when I saw that news that you had joined, I'm like, this is great. Like, they deserve her. She's wonderful. But for you, just take me through that even process of joining M13. I'm curious about that. It was like almost 2 years ago now. Like, take me through that.
Yeah, so I'd heard a lot about the firm and I knew them a bit. I'd met Courtney and Carter, and I'd met Matt Hoffman, who's their head of talent. And so I knew them by reputation and knew that they were hiring a really interesting and kind of diverse group of people who had sort of one common through line, which was everyone was a former operator. And I thought that was really interesting. A really interesting strategy. And that was also my background. So I got into investing kind of really late in my career, sort of after having had a full career as an operator. And so I liked that idea of kind of working with other operators. Carter just called me up and said, "Hey, we've got this new role we're creating, and we think you're perfect for it." And at the time, I wasn't looking necessarily to leave Techstars. I was really enjoying what I was doing at Techstars. So my previous role was running Techstars LA, but I'd also been doing it for 4 years. And I thought, what a great opportunity to build something really big and exciting and that felt differentiated in venture. I liked the team's vision. I liked Carter and Courtney's idea that they wanted to build a differentiated firm that was really focused on former operators helping founders. I liked that they were very ambitious, that everyone had a lot of energy, and just every person I met there, I liked more than the last one. And so I thought this could be great for my next adventure. And then the other thing I'll say is, I hadn't invested before at the Series A level, and I like to learn. I am just, if I'm not learning something new, I'm just not happy. And so I thought, what a great challenge to take my experience early stage investing and really learn how do I transition up to being a Series A investor. So that's been really great.
That's something I want to dive into actually. So I'm glad you mentioned that. Going from accelerator at Techstars, and then you have like Launchpad at M13, but they also invest in Series A. Like, just take me through that evolution for you. Then, like what you did to learn, who you talked, like how do you even go through? Okay, well now I'm going to be investor in Series A, which is a whole different ball game. Just take me through that process for you
Oh
and what
my
it was
gosh,
like.
a whole different ball game. So first of all, let me just say that someone once asked me what would be my autobiography, if the name of it, and I said leap first. And everyone I tell that to who knows me laughs because they're like, "That is so right." I am a person who makes like quick decisions. So my normal way of investing is, I meet founders and I'm kind of kind of on the basis of who they are and how they present themselves and the vision they pitch. I want to quickly get on board with whatever they're doing. And you can sort of do that at pre-seed and early stage, right? You don't have to do a long diligence process on, you know, is this product strategy right? And do 17 customer interviews and all that. So it was a huge adjustment for me, and a really great challenge to slow down my thinking, to take that initial excitement about the founder and kind of park it over here and say, what more can we learn about this? What do I need to know about the market that I don't know? How do I think about the competition? Who else can I interview who's worked with this team before, who has insight into the customer base? So it became a really interesting exercise for me. And I actually got in there when I first got there, and I went to the associates and I said, "You guys are going to teach me. Like, I'm going to learn from you." And I know that really stinks because, I'm coming in as a partner, but like, bear with me. I promise I will, make it worth your while and I'll be a great partner to work with. But right now I'm a student and I want you to teach me like how we do this, which was so awesome. And I love our whole, team that we work with, and the younger associates were, super patient with me as I kind of got up to speed with how do we build complex, financial outcome models, and look at market comps to think about, does this really meet our investing criteria?
It is such a different thing. And obviously, we invest in seed at Vitalize, a little bit different in pre-seed with our angel community. And then that next level, to your point, there's so much more data. There's so many more things you have to look at and look into. And so you learn that process with talking to other people, obviously, and doing your own research with that as well. Where did the Launchpad part of it fit into your role and how you did like both? Because Launchpad, you're talking like starting companies, Series A, they have a lot of data. They're like a couple years in. Like, just take me through your day to day on that, even with those different things.
I mean, so Launchpad is a really interesting part of our strategy. So there are a lot of venture firms that sort of have studio arms, where they ideate and they do internal incubation. We think about ours as a little bit differently in that when we put something through our Launchpad, the idea has to come in with, with a sort of outside unfair advantage that makes that idea compelling. So we don't believe that we as a team are well positioned to survey the market and be able to read the tea leaves well enough to, from the ground up, come up with a new business model that we believe is going to win. What we do believe we are really skilled at, and one of the things we bring to the table is, um, deep relationships across kind of a massive network of people, some of whom have massive audiences of their own, and of a particular point of view on the market. So um, and then we've also done some things in partnership. So we launched some companies with PepsiCo where they brought their sort of particular take on the market and where the market for healthy food was going. And that was one strategy that we pursued. And then more recently, we launched a company in partnership with Tony Robbins, that really grew out of his book that came out in February called Life Force. And the book is about longevity and the new science of longevity. And we built a business around
Mhm.
that, that's been in market now for 6 months and doing really well. But that idea kind of wouldn't worked in the abstract. It worked because of the people around the table, including Tony Robbins. So those are the kind of opportunities that we're looking for in Launchpad. And it really supports our core investing strategy because those companies become companies that we are really excited to build big positions in and to continue to support them as they grow.
Okay, with that too, and I think other people are gonna be curious as well. Like, okay, Launchpad, great, you're starting new companies, but like, it's like, who runs those companies? Who are the people you bring in? Who are like, just take me through more of that because that's fascinating to have that part of it as well. I'm curious about that.
Sure. So we have an amazing talent team. So the
Yeah.
structure of our team is 5 investing partners, 5 operating partners. One of the 5 operating partners is Matt Hoffman, who's our head of talent. He
Hmm.
is a serial chief people officer, with just a wealth of experience, both in hiring and managing people, but also like building high performing organizations. And we have a head of talent.
Yeah.
So with these launchpad companies, look, one of the key success factors is bringing in the right founders. So our talent team, we ran a whole process for Life Force, and we found 2 amazing founders for that business. And look, I give them all the credit for the fact that the company is doing so well. I give us a little bit of credit for hiring them, but really all the credit
Of
of the
course. Of
company's success
course.
goes to those people. So I think if you're going to do that strategy, having a way of this strategy of incubation, being able to identify, find, and then attract top talent into those opportunities is really important, which also means like the cap table has to make sense, right? Like these studios that like are doing, the studio takes 80% or whatever, like that does not make sense. And I mean,
Yeah.
and me coming from a culture that is very founder friendly and focused on, if we do what's best for founders, we're always going to be successful, but we have to focus on doing what's best for founders. And that philosophy kind of bleeds over into sort of how we think about Launchpad. The founders have to have a meaningful stake in order to build a company.
Yeah, I remember talking to Gail at our firm and about like that to that point, like the incentives aligning, having them be motivated and inspired to do the thing. If you don't have the incentives with the equity, it doesn't make sense anyways. You wouldn't want that from your founders because it doesn't make sense for them building this company as well. And so it seems predatory to have the other side for like taking 80% or whatever as a studio. It's a different model to be whatever. That's
Yeah,
their own thing.
and
But
maybe
I'm
those
curious with that.
studios are, I don't know, contributing more capital or have a reason why that business model
Yeah,
for them. Like it's just that's not the way
exactly.
we do it. We're very much think about it as kind of ideators, vision, and packaging bringing the right resources and people together around the idea, and then really letting the founders kind of drive the strategy is how we think about it.
So from that then, is that like are those basically seed then companies or pre-seed, then you invest right after the next round? Or is it like they need another round before they get to your series A? Just take me through like how that flow has gone or how you see it going.
Yeah, so we are doing the pre-seed funding. We are doing, in some cases, most of the seed funding as well. And then by the time the
Yep.
company gets to Series A, we really want to bring in other people. So, really,
Yep.
we want to bring in other firms as early as possible. We're never looking to is this just all M13 all the time? Because I mean, I'm a collaborative human in general, but and we are at M13 collaborative humans.
Yep.
And, we believe that there's other great venture funds that we want to partner with that, can bring different ideas to the table, as well as capital. So.
I'm curious with you personally with at M13, what are you most excited about? Just in terms of the areas you invest in and like company types of companies you see, like for you personally, what are you most excited about?
Yeah. So one of the interesting things about being an M13 is, I used to be just a real generalist investor. If you look at sort of my early
Yep.
portfolio from Techstars, I mean, I invested in aerospace AI company, Slingshot Aerospace. I invested in, a company that at the time was Sichuan chili sauce, Fly by Jing, and then everything in between. And I've had to really think about like, where are my spikes? Where are my kind of areas of expertise? And what do I really care about and I'm drawn to? So there's a few areas. One of them actually is the future of work. So,
Love that.
and yes, and I love talking about deals with Gail and, sharing stuff back and forth
Absolutely.
because I think we see things, we're aligned in the way we see things. I'm really excited about what you could call the freelancer economy, or this idea that you can build a fulfilling, lucrative and stable career outside the construct of a job. So if
Yeah.
you think about what are the technologies and platforms that are described by that as a space, it's everything from labor marketplaces to fintech tools to, benefits to ongoing upskilling and training to community. How do you build community if you're, not in the workplace, all the time? So that's kind of one half of what I'm really excited about with the future of work. And the other half is we still need corporations. We need them to be great. Corporations are struggling to retain talent in this market where all of these people are going out into this new economy. How do corporations remain great places for the people that want to choose that path? So anything around, supporting healthy culture in the workplace. So I invested in AllVoices, helping employees manage their financial future. So we've got Northstar in our portfolio and things like solving just the tactical problems of helping people get to work. So WeeCare is a company that I invested in earlier this
Mm,
year. I love this company because it's kind of playing on both sides of these two things that I care about. So, on the one hand, it's a marketplace for in home childcare providers. So, people working at home, creating a living, probably moms who are raising their own kids and who are running a daycare in their home. That access to that network is sold as an employee benefit. So, on the other side of that marketplace, the people benefiting are working parents who need to get to work and need affordable childcare. And the great thing about WeCare's model is employers are helping their workforce kind of get access to that benefit. So I love everything about that. And
yep.
childcare is such a massive, massive problem right now in the economy that it's like we really need this right now more than ever.
We had Jessica on the show talk about it,
Oh,
and
really? Oh my gosh.
yes,
Oh, that's great.
which
I
was
didn't
great
even
to talk
know.
to her about that.
So yeah,
One thing
future of work, I
go
mean,
ahead.
is a massive area. And the other one I would say is e-com infrastructure. I have always been excited by the potential to make it possible to launch a successful brand outside of the construct of the Amazon ecosystem. So anything that helps small brands acquire customers, manage their business, manage their supply chain, delivery, last mile delivery. I'm also really interested in the circular economy. Um, whether it's sustainable materials, whether it's returns, the resale market, we're hugely excited
Mm.
about at M13. So there's just a lot of rich opportunity in there too.
I want to tie in a question from Twitter because it's perfect for this. Melinda McClure asked, so when when Anna first joined M13, she wrote about being excited about investing in tech for working mothers, and obviously we talk about WeeCare here, we're just going to tie into that. But I'd love to hear her reflections on that thesis over the past 2 years. Is enough innovation being done to support us moms? What tech is she excited about right now in regards to that as well?
Oh my gosh, never enough. No, there's not enough being done. And I think there are great solutions out there that just aren't, at scale yet. So I think there's WeeCare and there's another number of other companies, innovating in the childcare space that just need to, become, get greater adoption. Um, so that's kind of one category, I would say. The other category is workplace culture tools. I think there are a number of amazing tools in addition to AllVoices that are thinking about how do we, especially in sort of a remote world, or a world where we've lost a lot of that in-person connectivity. Like, how do we create authentic connections and make people really feel heard and valued in the workplace? I think there's a lot of room for innovation there. Um, and then, I mean, other things for working mothers. I think probably the best resource for this is the Marshall Plan for Moms, which was launched by Rajma Sajani, the founder of Girls Who Code. And I think she's really laid out a kind of manifesto of what we need to do to support working mothers that I would almost look at as like, here's an investing thesis, that I could get behind. So tons more work to do. I think it's a great question. I think the thing is that it may not always feel like we're making progress, but I just have to go back to this idea that the arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice, and that we'll get there eventually. And that the most important thing is that we keep moving in that direction.
One thing I'm curious about too, on that kind of a similar vein of sorts, but like you'd written an article about Gen Z and like their preferences, et cetera. But like, how do you look at age, different age, like age groups and how they're affected in terms of the future of work things you mentioned and like commerce as well, how they shop? I'm curious on anything you're seeing across the ages and different age categories in your investing experience.
So I've really had to think about this as a scientist because I am not in the target market. When you think about Gen Z, my kids are all Gen Z, right? So I have four kids,
Hmm.
all of whom fall into that generation. So I
Yeah.
approach them like, an explorer or a scientist going to visit a different planet. And when we think about how big that generation is and the fact that they're just coming into the workplace, their habits, and ways of engaging with each other are going to have a massive impact on how we all engage with each other and how we all do our work, how we all socialize. So if you think about what this generation is like, and how they grew up, they're obviously all digital natives. Their
Yep.
platforms they've grown up on are Snapchat and TikTok. Fast moving, short form video. A lot of their social lives are actually, if not exclusively, then primarily online, which is so interesting and so different for those of us who grew up, you know, going out on play dates and, in-person
Yeah.
gatherings and didn't grow up with cell phones. So I think I've found it really informative to think about what does that mean, right? So they're not, so 95% of Gen Z, like, who has a LinkedIn doesn't use it, right? So think about the opportunity. What a massive opportunity. How are they going to network for a job? Where are they going to gather their network? How are they going to create a digital accessible record of what they do, right? It's not going to be a paper resume for sure. And it's probably not going to be a
Oh.
LinkedIn profile. So what's that new
Yep.
thing? Like there's some startups, working on that, including one that hasn't been announced yet that I wish I could talk about because I think it's so cool.
Uh,
But there's going to be a lot of video
Next
based
time, Anna.
next time. Yeah, you guys probably know what it is. I think there's going to be a lot of video based, kind of, work marketplaces and, tools for finding jobs, and also thinking about how to, make social connections, right? So TikTok is not a social platform, right? It's a It's a content platform. It's not a place to gather
Yeah.
and connect in the same way that Facebook was sort of in the early days. And Gen Z, they're not on Facebook, right? They're barely on Instagram. Snapchat is social for them,
Yeah.
but like, where's the new gathering spot going to be? And how is that going to work? I think there's some interesting opportunities around that, thinking about, online community for that generation too.
What a competitive advantage to have 4 kids who are Gen Z, and then to be like,
Well, I
"Hey,
have my,
what
I
are you
can
just
run
curious,
my own,
what are you using?"
I can run my own little focus groups. It's very fun.
It's not fair. That's I mean, yeah, it's like, how else do you get that? You're like, you have 4 kids in your household. It's like you just talk to them and like, "Oh, like, what are you using? What do you think about this?" Like, "Oh, like, jobs, you need a job. How do you need a job now?" Like, it's very curious to hear those
It's
insights,
also
that you
very
could have.
humbling, and, like, back to my point of, like, I always wanna be learning something new. I have to
Mhm.
it's just a good reminder that I don't really know what the next hot thing is.
Fair, fair. They could just talk to more and more people and just figure that out. I think it's something you find out too. Like, we're pretty active on Twitter, so we always have deals coming inbound, and we're just like, "What are you building?" It's like so interesting how the variety within even future of work. Like, our focus is like somewhat narrow by future of work, but it's not really because future of work touches so many different things that it's like, to your point, all different platforms for all different things and across age groups. Future of work. Look at Gen Z, how big of a workforce that's going to be. So that's a huge group. It's fascinating to see
I
that
just
and
have to
to
say, your
learn and figure
Twitter
out.
collectively is amazing. All of y'all and the Vitalize Twitter, I mean, props to you. And what I love about it particularly, and this kind of goes back to what I was saying before, is like it's focused on helping founders, right? And people, and it's authentic
Yeah.
therefore, because you're coming from a place of like really just wanting to be of service to the community rather than sort of VC brags, right? VCs congratulating themselves. And
Exactly.
and that's really great, and that's what works, and that's the kind of content that people want. I try to do that too, but honestly, I just don't put time into it. I always have it on
Fair.
my list of like do more Twitter, but I don't. It's hard to find the time.
Wait, Anna, do you have other things going on perhaps besides Twitter? That's
Oh,
shocking to me. Yes, there is. I want to segue from that actually. That's perfect. So in terms of helping founders, and like we take that approach for sure. Like that's an easy way. I try to share resources, and that comes from like my whole background on building community, and that's why we built community for Vitalize Angels. For you, with your experience as a founder and having a JD, being a consultant before, being on the investor side, executive coach, take me through how you look at helping founders and what they typically come to you for, what you're most like helpful for in terms of like, your experience. I'd be curious to hear more about that because you have such a wide variety of experiences that I'm curious to how you approach that and what people come to you for.
yeah, that's a great question. Thanks. I think it kind of falls into buckets, and then it's sort of almost buckets of engagement. Like, how deeply can I get engaged with this founder? So, sort of at the top, it's really easy. I try to be a connector wherever I can. So, make introductions. If I can't do more for a founder, who are 2 or 3 other people I can introduce them to that I know will be high value, and I've created a way of doing that that's very low lift for me, so it allows me to help more people. And so that I'm able to do for kind of a wide variety of people. I would say like the next layer for me is I love to dig in and just ask great questions around
Hmm.
strategy, kind of product strategy, growth strategy. And like all I'm bringing into those conversations is like questions. I am never, unless you really ask me and push me, I'm never going to tell you this is what you should do. Right? But I love to have conversations with founders where we kind of engage in co-creating solutions and answers, like just through dialogue. So I love to do that. And then, like on the deepest level, the founders that I have long trust-based relationships with, I hope that I'm a person that helps them identify, like on a personal level, like how do they need to scale up their leadership, and I have the courage to give like tough feedback when I feel like they're ready to hear it, and ideally when I have a great
Yeah.
relationship like that, they're able to hear that from me, and we have this really we just have a really good relationship where that kind of thing can happen. And over time, it's not only about did I have like a transactional impact of connecting you with someone or, giving you a little gem of a good idea, but it's like, did I help this person to become the biggest possible version of themselves? Like, and as a result, kind of like set their company on a new path. Like, that's what I want to be doing for people. Um, There's another thing that I love to do that I can do in kind of like smaller bits, which is I would say like creating the like a frame of sort of telling someone back their story in a different way that unlocks something for them. So you pitch your story. What I heard you say is, I'll say that back, and then I'll say it in my way. And a lot of times what happens is they say, wow, you said that really well. Like, let me see if I can incorporate that. Um,
Mm,
However, I was in a conversation recently with Roger Ehrenberg, who's
okay.
a longtime, really well-known seed investor, kind of one of the early, really successful seed investors. And he said something to me around this topic, which was, you want to look for someone who's a frame maker, not a frame taker.
Mm,
And I thought that was so interesting because I understood immediately what he meant because, you know, and please know that I say this with all humility. It is not like me to sort
mhm.
of toot my own horn, but I am a good frame maker. Like founders will say that. I'm
Yeah.
very good at kind of seeing the forest for the trees, right? Seeing the big picture. But the founder needs to do that, right? So now I get a little worried when I pitch someone's business back to them and they're like, oh, I'm going to say that, right? Because they have to be the one that owns the frame and that makes the frame. And it's actually something I look for now. Is this founder a frame maker or a frame taker?
I guess to the point as well, obviously I ask a lot of questions, having done like 400 podcast interviews, asking founders like, what's another way you could articulate that or say that, or what, like to your point of like making them come up with it instead of you, it's like asking them that type of thing as well, to have them think of a different angle they could take, or how would a different audience perhaps take what you're saying. And that's something that's interesting too, because I started this founder community recently, and like talking with those founders about their story, which is so big. The story is everything for many reasons, obviously for customers, for investors, for employees. And like, how do you take a different spin on that for different groups as well, while still keeping the overall mission, overall vision of what you want to do and what you're trying to articulate, which I find fascinating because there's no right answer. It's just, how did that make them feel? How did that make it's just, it's
I
interesting
love that
to dive
approach,
deeper.
what you're saying. I love that approach of thinking about it rather than putting your own idea about what the frame is, kind of inviting them to do it again or do it differently or kind of workshopping it with them. And that's like always what I'm looking to do is kind of create a conversation where we see the same thing and we've kind of, each of us knows that the other person gets it, you know, like that's
Yeah.
sort of the connection that I'm looking for. But I love what you're saying about kind of inviting them, into pushing their thinking forward, really to see what they do with that.
Yeah, and like how do they respond and how they react, and do they actually come up with something that they like that's better too? And like, wait a minute, oh, I should maybe think about this more and change it up, because we get so stuck in our same thing. I think I remember interviewing someone, I forget who exactly it was. I think they said they did like 120 or like revisions of their pitch deck, and like it's kind of crazy to think about. And like, but it did get a lot better. So it's like that iteration helped them their story and telling it. So it can be helpful in that way. One thing I'm curious with M13, I know your platform side takes a bit of a different approach than like one partner to many, let's just say, in terms of founders. You have a very hands-on approach. Take me through more of that for people who aren't as familiar with that side of M13 after investment, what that looks like, how you support founders more broadly as a team. I'm curious about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you got it exactly right, which is the idea that we see the founder being in the middle and being able to have individual relationships with our whole team as opposed to like needing to funnel everything through the investing partner. So we've got five operating partners, and then we've got a team of 30 people beyond the partners, most of whom fall on the side of portfolio support. So we call our portfolio support team Propulsion because all of our imagery and iconography is around outer space because our
It's
name.
so good too, by the way.
Thank you. We actually just relaunched our website, so it's brand
I
new
noticed.
as of
It's great.
yesterday. So we're the propulsion team that helps propel people forward. So we run it really. We run it with a really kind of tight system where we onboard founders to our system. We introduce all of our teams and resources. We identify right when we close the investment, where can we plug in and be helpful. So some of the kind of verticals that we offer are growth. How do we help you with, how do we help you think through go to market? Um, talent, talent strategy, and where can we help you source candidates? So, and that's something people really want and really value, that always feels like an urgent need. And so it's a place where we've really invested a lot of time in kind of building out our team, and also our kind of platforms, resources around that. Data. So we have Rob
Mm,
Olson, my partner, he's our head of data. And there's also a director of data as well. And they will dig in and look for insights about what's working in the business that might not be visible. Most companies, even at Series A, don't have an internal data team. So that's something that's, incredibly valuable. Um, and then we have brand. Christine Choi used to run brand at Virgin. She's phenomenal. She's just, one of the best thinkers on how to express your brand, in a beautiful way. And so we help founders kind of tell their story in a way that's kind of more powerful. And then we have a lot of structure around this. So we have a weekly meeting where we run it like a consulting firm. What did we do for our portfolio this week? What projects do we have active? What projects are we closing out? Who needs more help that we could be digging in?
mm.
We intentionally spend a lot of time on this because we know, one of our founders said, like, M13 is the fund that everybody says they are, which is like one of my favorite quotes. Like, I think everybody
I
says
saw
they do
that.
this. It's like we put so much effort into making sure that we're actually doing it. And it's like we believe that it makes a difference, and more importantly, like, our founders believe that it makes a difference, and that's really what we care about. Like, back to the point we were discussing earlier, it's just like, if we do what's best for founders, like, everything will work out.
Yeah.
Um,
Two things from that. One, I saw that quote that you mentioned about the VC firm, that VC firms say they are. I thought it was great. I was like, that's so perfect of putting it that way. Also, the visual I saw of like the founder, like a partner in the middle with the nodes outside versus the other way. I was like, genius. Like, I'm so like jealous of that. I want to do aspirationally create some content like that. I thought it was great in terms of that as well. And the site looks wonderful. One thing that we can't just like, yes, we can't not talk about is the other things you're involved with too. So like the Fund LA, for instance, AllVoices, Pledge LA. Just take me through those real quick. What your involvement? I think we can't just not talk about them as well.
Absolutely. So the Fund LA, I got involved with when Jenny and Scott, who were the founders of the Fund Global,
Yep.
brought it to different regions and ecosystems. And so we stood up the Fund LA with an amazing team of founders and operators to back it. We raised a fund. We invested in 40 companies through that fund. It's now done. That was an amazing adventure. There's some really exciting, wonderful companies in that. And Jenny and Scott are both close friends. M13 is now an LP in the fund, which has moved to a more consolidated, centralized strategy, but still has this really strong community of operators that believe in, that want to be part of a really engaged community that helps founders. So Jenny and Scott are continuing with the strategy. And, I'm now sort of a friend of the firm, but a really big supporter. Jenny and I were at Techstars together, close friends. Some of the people I call up when I want to workshop or talk through a deal, and think they're really strong investors, and happy to sort of still be working with them as a partner. And Pledge LA, I've been on the advisory board of Pledge LA since the beginning. It's a team of people and a mission I care about deeply. When we could see that the LA ecosystem was really taking off, and was growing, and that exciting things were happening, in LA tech, we wanted to form this organization around making sure that that included all communities and all stakeholders. And that's the mission of Pledge LA, is to um, both hold LA tech community accountable, and then also create ways to bring more diversity and different voices into that community. So we've launched some amazing programs, including a summer intern venture program that has had incredible results, including 3 of the grads of that program now having full-time jobs in venture. A
Nice.
founders fund program that has given non-dilutive capital to I think it's about 40 companies now, with founders of color, mostly also building in underserved communities that were not as connected into the tech ecosystem. And we're now talking about what is the next wave of Pledge LA going to be. We just had a meeting on it a couple of weeks ago. So I remain committed to that. And I'm excited for kind of where it's going to go next now that LA has even more, interest and excitement around the tech community.
Yeah, we saw Tech Week, which so I'm living nomadically for a few months, and I happened to leave the week that they had that, and I had this plan for a while, so I missed it, but it seemed great. LA Tech Week seemed wonderful as well. As another thing.
LA Tech Week was great. I have to tell you, I was honestly shocked that like we were as a community able to pull that off.
Quickly.
And we did, and everybody kind of teamed together. It was a real community effort, and I think it was just awesome. It was just a good testament to where the community is, and what I'm most excited about is a lot of people who might not have known what LA was about or what was happening, like were able to come and experience it. And so that was cool. Just having a lot of people come visit LA and see what we're up to. Um,
Yeah, which is
and look, I've
amazing to
always, wanted to be in the community, kind of a leader and champion of backing underrepresented founders, of building an inclusive community. And like, I get to still do that at M13. And that's, something that M13 as a firm also values. So it's great to be at a place that I feel, kind of supports and shares my values and celebrates them, and gives me honestly like a really big platform to continue to do that work.
this question came up recently, so I'm going to ask you, with your investment focus in Series A, we haven't really talked about this yet. What are some of the things you're looking for a company to get investment from M13 at a Series A? Anything you can share that'd be helpful for founders? I know this comes up and there's a lot of different variants, but I'm just curious, anything from your perspective you're looking for at a Series A in terms of if you have metrics, if you have what you're looking for. Yeah.
And I will answer that question. And I'll also just tell you like a little secret, which is I did do a bunch of pre-seed deals this year, and we also do seed deals.
Oh,
I don't want to confuse people by talking about it too much, but I really love early
fair.
stage, and I was very lucky to be able to do a bunch of early stage investments earlier this year, that we hope will mature into
Of
Series A
course.
positions for our fund. But in terms of Series A, what we're looking for, so I would say let's start with market. So building in a big market is really important. We've got to believe that you can build a company in whatever the market is that can be not just $1 billion company, but a couple of times bigger than that. And so if your total market size is under 5 billion, you're just not going to get there. So sometimes we have to not even proceed with looking at a company if we don't believe that with the core market and adjacent markets that you could grow into, there is a big market opportunity. The second one is and always will be team. Is this a team that we believe has founder market fit, has the right, grit and learning mindset, has the ability to attract the right talent around them to get the idea done, is truly committed to going on the journey, which we know, is going to be long and hard. And are people that we want to hang out with and help and build alongside and kind of can imagine
Yeah.
spending a lot of time with, because at this level, we're going to be with them and spending a lot of time with them, and having them really be part of our family for a long time. So we just, that connection has to be there. And then at Series A, we're looking for some very specific things around having evidence of product market fit and a pathway to profitable customer acquisition. So you don't have to be there yet, but we have to have like the playbook. We have to be able to visualize how is it going to get from here, to growth. And all of that ideally is backed by some kind of, special insight or special sauce that we believe gives this company a particular advantage in that whole frame.
Within all of that, do you have like particular milestones you need them to be at? And if you can share, feel free. If you can't, no worries. But do you have things that you're looking for? Obviously, there's always variance because there's different variables you're taking into account. But is there something you're looking for on that?
Yeah, I mean, so I'll just make the general point, which is I think, the metrics now in this current market have sort of, changed. So maybe last year when you could have 1 million in, recurring revenue, and be a viable Series A company. I think it's a bit tougher at this point.
Yeah.
And that's related to the fact that if you look at market multiples in the public markets and you think about exit pathways, right? The market multiples, are just less favorable right now, which means there's just a
Yeah.
higher bar. So if you think if it was 1 million last year, it's 2 million this year. And of course that changes across whether you're a marketplace business model or your SaaS business model. If you have recurring revenue, the number is lower than if you have non-recurring revenue. So for a
Yep.
marketplace model that's off GMV, it's not 2 million, it's probably 3 million in revenue, at this point. But as you said, everything has a big asterisk. There's no hard and fast rules. These are just general guidelines.
Of course.
And
Of
and then
course.
and then how
We have
fast
to
you're
say them.
growing and how big the market can kind of be offsetting factors into that.
Of course. Yeah.
And like
I know people have
listening
asked
to me
me. So.
talking numbers to you, like I am not like I was like like I said at the beginning, I don't. This isn't how I generally think. I'm not a person who's like looks at the numbers first, but I
Uh-huh.
do look at the numbers now. Eventually, right?
But now you're a Series A investor too. I know you can't
I
shake off
know.
the pre-seed and seed, but you are also that.
Yeah,
So now
yeah,
you can own those numbers as well,
yeah,
Anna.
yeah.
Okay, one thing I had to finish with because it was funny, and I like Mickey a lot. So Mickey asked, we have to talk about your air guitar era, and from her bringing up this air guitar era led me to a rabbit hole today I did not intend on going on, and so I went to watch a YouTube video all about that movie you produced. I looked at LinkedIn and I go deep dive of that, and you mentioned like we're basically producing that as. Just take me through that interest in the first place, and I'm curious as we wrap this up on a light note.
But that's fun. I love that you went down the air guitar rabbit hole. Air guitar is kind of a big social movement that like never really happened that we all believed in.
Mhm.
Um, so look, I think it goes back to even before I was making investing, I was always backing entrepreneurs, and these two guys came into my office when I was a talent manager and had this Wall Street
Yep.
Journal article about the World Air Guitar Championships and said, we think this would make a great TV show. And I immediately started thinking, TV show, movie, US competition, and so we got really excited as a team and we went and licensed the rights to launch the US Air Guitar Championships from the World Organization, which is actually in Oulu, Finland. You
That's
probably
crazy.
know that now that you did your research, but the World Air Guitar Championships are held above the Arctic Circle every summer. And so we became the organization launching the US Air Guitar Championships. We did it in 2003. We filmed the whole thing. We ended up making a movie about it unintentionally. We were filming footage for a promo for a TV show that we were not able to sell, but we were so in love with the story, we decided to turn it into a feature film. And those two entrepreneurs who had that idea, they have day jobs. I'm sorry to tell you that air guitar is not supporting them, but they are still running the US Air Guitar Championships. And it was a really fun project to be involved with. That was just about creativity and joy and the joy of essentially pretending to be a rock star.
That is incredible, first of all. Um, that you took a swing at that. You're like, yeah, yeah, let's do that. That sounds great. I just find it fascinating because you never know what you're gonna see, what's gonna come across your desk, especially when you're building stuff as an entrepreneur. Like I know you're an entrepreneur for many years. Like you just never know what can happen, which I find fascinating, and I had to ask about. One last thing, I'm also curious about. I think you posted a thing about your mom at one point. You're saying like she was fierce. Is like the one word you used to describe her. Do you embody that? Like, how did she impact you? I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, wow, I love that question. She was fierce. So my mom represented writers. So in a similar way, so the way I work with entrepreneurs, let's say, is how she worked with writers. And if she found someone she believed in, she would go to any lengths to ensure their success. She was an incredibly tough negotiator, but never on her own behalf, always on someone else's, right? And
Mm,
so what I learned from her was like how powerful and deeply satisfying it can be to be like on the sidelines helping someone else, whether it's a founder or an author or a creator of some kind, like achieve their vision. and to use your own personal powers and conviction to help someone else, right? And she was fundamentally more comfortable not being in the spotlight and being able to speak about someone on someone else's behalf rather than kind of toot her own horn. I would say I'm in the same boat. Like I will wax poetic about my founders all day long when it comes to talking about myself. Like it's something I've had to practice and develop. So she sort of taught me that. The other thing is I didn't realize when I was a kid, my mother was unusual. She was a full-time career woman. She had a PhD. She was just a powerful human who was really respected in her industry. And so I grew up just thinking that was normal life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that obviously I think really helped me to create a vision for myself about who I could be in the world without feeling like the world was putting limits on me because I didn't see those.
What a powerful thing. And I want to end it there. So, where's the best place for people to get in touch with you, Anna, learn more about M13?
M13.co is our website, which, as I said, was just relaunched and it is beautiful. And Anna W. Barber on Twitter. I am on Twitter a lot. I respond to DMs and would love to talk to anyone who wants to reach out.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the time today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Justin.